Welcome to the 12 Monkeys podcast, a Southgate Media Group production, where we talk all about Syfy Channel's reimagining of the classic science fiction film originally produced by Terry Gilliam. I'm your host, Blaire and Graves, the executive producer of Professional Geek Podcast, and with me today is Kyle Tremblay, the editor-in-chief at TVBinges.com. You can find us on Twitter at Blaire Loves TV and at Kyle Loves TV, and remember, that's Blaire with an E. You can also follow this podcast's Twitter handle at 12 Monkeys Pod. Hey Kyle, how you doing today?
Oh, Blaire, we've been, vacationing in other time streams for a while now, but we have reconvened, about a year after our last podcast to talk about this Syfy Channel series, and I'm delighted to be back.
Oh, so am I. Today, Kyle, you and I are going to be discussing the Season 2 premiere, Season 2, Episode 1, Year of the Monkey, which was written by Terry Matalas and Travis Fickett, who are the show creators and showrunners. And a lot of things happened, and I'm trying to play catch-up. I don't know about you.
Again, it's been a while between seasons, right? This wasn't like a 3-4 month break. And I'm pretty bad at keeping up with stuff anyway. And this premiere kind of snuck up on me a bit. So I gotta be honest, going in, I did not remember a lot. I just sort of had the bare bones of the story. And then we were right off the bat treated to a narration by Madeleine Stowe, star of the original, the 12 Monkeys film on which this series is based, which was quite a nice welcome back to the season. I was like, oh, hey, thanks. Thanks, Madeleine, for catching me up on the show.
Makes me so happy because I love her in the film.
She's great in the film, and that's a really cool get for the show.
Absolutely. But we started off the episode with cool guys jumping away from explosions and into water.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of, the plot picking up, oh boy, was I lost.
Oh, I know.
We were on a bridge. I didn't know what time we were in. I didn't know what was happening.
Ramsey and Cole facing off against the striking woman. She's talking about the witness again, who I believe we still have not yet met.
I don't think we know who the witness is. I'm 80% sure that we don't. Her name is Olivia, right? It's Olivia?
Oh, interesting. On IMDb, she is credited as the striking woman.
I thought we learned she was Olivia. Again, 75% sure. I might be wrong about this. It took me a while to even calibrate who she was and why Ramsey was turning himself in. I'm still not 100% sure I understand what was happening in that scene.
No, I don't. When it comes to Ramsey's motivations, that's the one character that I always feel he's sort of wherever they want him to be, he's going to be.
There's also some weird time shifting stuff with him, because wasn't he left for dead in the last season? Didn't Cole leave him to die?
No, see, Cole sent Cassie to the future because he could only save one of them. Okay. So he sent Cassie to the future to protect her because she's obviously the person everybody's trying to assassinate right now. And then he takes Ramsey and he makes Ramsey better, basically nurses him back to health. That's what I assume. Because we see Cassie basically the moment she lands back in the future, which I think is 2044.
Yes, right.
So we see her miraculously be cool to walk around after 4 days after being shot.
Right. It seemed like that was a real quick recovery.
Yes. Whereas Ramsey we catch about a year after the fact. So we're kind of in the same exact timeline as Cole and Ramsey right now in terms of the show having ended about a year ago for season 1 and being back now. So it's been a year of them time travel fighting, trying to stop the witness. Whereas we're only 4 days behind on Cassie.
So that's what they've been doing? They've been working on plans to stop her? Okay. Yeah, because Ramsey was obviously playing it false on the bridge. It was it was a real game they were playing.
Yeah, a fake out.
Real fake 'em up. And where Cole, it was really engineered just so Cole could walk out in slow motion and set off bombs. I feel that was the whole purpose of it. But then it immediately went bad because they were taking on 50 people with just the two of them. They had no backup.
Something they are wont to do on this show.
Yeah, really didn't think it through. And also, Cole was pointing a gun at the striking woman / possibly Olivia, and the motorcycle dudes who were showing up were a ways away, and they didn't. Now, why didn't they shoot her? Like,
I'm not sure because she's sort of like not catalyst is the wrong word.
she's like a facilitator of this.
She's a facilitator of the whole situation.
Yeah.
And basically, like, it would take a very long time for them to groom another person to do it. That's kind of like my idea, is that they know that if they kill her, then they lose a lot of information. You know,
so they were trying to take her captive.
That's my interpretation.
Okay, well, that makes sense, so we're going to go with it.
Yep.
Listen, I will jump on the first explanation that makes any sense.
But you have to remember that I was just talking about this with my roommate. The men on this show are the brawn. They are not the brains. The women on this show are the brains. You know, Jennifer Goins, Cassie Rayleigh, Dr. Jones, even the Striking Woman / Olivia. They're all in the know. So it's like, as you see in a scene where they almost kill Dr. Jones, you can't really kill them because they're the ones with all the know-how, and they're the ones who know how to actually stop or cause the apocalypse. Whereas the men are just sort of like fighting in the trenches, trying to make things happen.
Right. They're sort of foot soldiers.
Exactly.
In this whole thing. Yeah, that's true. That is a interesting power dynamic on the show. Mm-hmm. That the women are the characters who are sort of able to get things done in a big picture sense, and the guys just sort of have Bowie knives and and guns and just sort of go charging around, executing terribly thought out plans that require them to jump off a bridge.
Pretty much all the guys in this one, though.
Yeah, no guy was really thinking that much in this episode.
No.
This was not thought through. Especially the hooded fellow, whose name I do not know.
He's the leader of the 12 Monkeys, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, right? As far as I guess, but isn't like Jennifer the 12 Monkeys in the future? She's like the army of the 12. I don't know.
She's like their saint, not exactly their saint, but their prophet.
Okay.
Yeah, so she's like a prophet, and he's more of like, you know, your military leader type guy.
Gotcha. So yeah, he had some trouble thinking it through because he thought he was just going to roll in and take the time machine. And
which you can't do.
Can't do.
Time machines need people to operate them.
Yes, as they learned, because in really spectacular fashion, that dude got disintegrated piece by piece.
That was a pretty cool. This premiere, I don't think it at all lacked story. I think that it was not 100% the best at getting you back in from where we left off, but it definitely was a beautiful episode. It had some really phenomenal dialogue and character building, and it was a good time. That being said, as somebody, and I feel like, you know, hosting a podcast about it, I probably should have watched it yesterday. But
yeah, me too.
I, like you, I thought I had an extra week.
Yeah.
So, you know, as somebody who's jumping in back from a year ago, I'm also just a little bit on the rusty side with my time traveling antics.
Yeah, well, what's interesting about this show, and I was talking with one of our friends on Twitter about this, is there's definitely a way to enjoy this show that I'm currently engaged in which you don't really understand it. Like there's, as you were saying, the cinematography of this episode was really well done, and at times it felt like a movie, which is I think something that you can't say about a lot of TV shows.
One of the strong points of this show is that you feel like you're watching a 1-hour movie every week. Yeah,
there's a real cinematic quality to it, and especially like that intro scene. On the bridge, very much felt like a movie scene, and you just don't see that on TV that much. And the actors are all very appealing, even when they're disagreeing with each other, as Cole and Cassie ended up doing in this episode. You're sort of rooting for all of them in a way, like you know, the sort of who I'm rooting for can be a bit of a fluid situation, but there's no one who I'm disappointed to see on screen. I mean, we'll get to Deacon in a second, but I thought Deacon was the star of this episode.
I totally agree. 100%.
Yeah, like Deacon has entered that rarefied era of character actors where every line he delivers is the final line in a CSI cold open, and yes. He delivers his lines, and then he puts on his shades, and then the Who plays. Like every single line he delivers, which is a great place to be if you have like 4 lines every episode.
Yeah, the actor's name is Todd Stashwick, and he is, as you said, a phenomenal character actor. I believe he's on The Walking Dead right now, correct?
I don't know. I gave up on The Walking Dead.
Oh, yeah, that's correct. No, I was wrong. I'm sorry.
Nope.
No, but he's in like the Vampire Diaries universe.
So he's sort of just around this sort of supernaturally kind of this orbit.
Yeah, he was in season 4 of Heroes, which I know most people hate, but I loved season 4 of Heroes, and he was just sort of a side character, but he was very good at being that side character, and that's what this guy does. He's just a character actor.
Yeah, well, he's great at it. I mean, I thought every second Deacon was on screen was an utter joy in this episode. Yeah. And back to my sort of macro point, which is like, I suspect that I will sort of ease into this season and start figuring out what's going on eventually, just by virtue of talking about it with you. But it's like, the show has so many likable qualities to it, and I trust that if I really put in the time, I would have a much better understanding of, like, the actual plot mechanics. That, like, it's not nonsense, right? Like, this stuff that I'm not saying I'm not understanding, it's my fault I'm not understanding. I'm just not, right. I'm like, it's, I didn't rewatch the season or whatever. So I didn't like brush up on it. I just sort of went in cold. But I know that there is like an underlying logic to all of this. But even without understanding that logic, there's just so much to like about this show, and there's so much good acting and good writing and good dialogue and fun scenes and intrigue. I mean, like the speed dating scene later on, which I'm sure we'll get to. Like, there's so much. 12 Monkeys does a really great job. It's something that I don't think like the Heroes Reborn thing did, for example, and a lot of shows in this genre do, which is it really makes an effort to court viewers who aren't like dialed into 10 when they're watching. And that's one of my big complaints about like the superhero TV and movies boon, is that I feel like those shows very much pander to an audience of people who already have their dial set to 10 and are just locked in and know everything. And if you don't know everything, you're dead to them. Like, and so many of these shows, there's this terrible show on CW called like DC's Legends of Tomorrow or something.
Yes,
and it's like, that show is like, well, if you love DC and you've read all these comic books, I'm sure it's a great show. But if you haven't, there's just nothing for you. There's just nothing at all for you. And for the 12 Monkeys show, it's like, if you haven't seen the movie, and if you don't like lock in and like read the wiki and know exactly what's happening, there's still so much for you with this show. And that's one of the things that I appreciate most about it, and something that I think is like an underrated factor of why this is such a successful show, is that it really has an understanding of how to appeal to multiple audiences, because that the complicated stuff is there if you want it, but if you don't, you've still got stuff to grasp onto.
Yeah, and it appeals to the time traveler fan. Like, I feel like a Doctor Who fan would like this show, even though this is a bit grittier than Doctor Who. Yeah. It appeals to people who are into medical stuff. If you're really into medical dramas, I feel like there's a great part of that. If you like action TV shows, it's got that for you as well. Like, there's just so much. It's so rich. The world is so rich and appealing and willing to talk to a different viewer at different times and expect that the other viewers are going to, stay along for the ride. And I agree. That's a very unique thing in especially the science fiction landscape. Like, if, you're going to go to Star Trek because you like spaceships. And I know there's more than that, but like, that's one of the primary reasons you're going to go to that. But I don't feel like you have to be a time travel person to go to 12 Monkeys. There's so much more there.
There's real, there's just a sense with the show that the people running it are very cognizant of appealing to a wider audience. And so like you never get too far into the weeds with like the complicated stuff. There's always something to sort of light the way forward. There's always a speed dating scene. There's always a prison breakout. There's always something that like brings you back. Like, okay, I know what's happening in this scene. I'm back.
Right, exactly. Although, props to Terry Matalas, who's the show creator. I read an article, I think yesterday, that he has been, that UPC, which is the company that owns NBC and Syfy, are going to give him a lot more shows on a lot of different networks. And hopefully it's the Joss Whedon effect doesn't come in and, we lose quality for 12 Monkeys for this. But it's very exciting for him, and congratulations to Terry Matalas.
Congratulations to him. Well deserved based on this show. It's rare to find a showrunner who who can straddle the line between appealing to the sort of fanboy, fangirl audience and also the general audience.
Yes, exactly. But okay, moving on. We praised Deacon. I want to
Deacon.
Deacon. I want to talk about how excited I am about just Jones being back in my life.
Oh, Dr. Jones. I missed her and her German accent.
Oh, I missed her so much. Oh, I missed her beautiful face.
Yeah.
She had some of the best lines in this episode, and just, her, like, Barbara Sukawa can just play that intelligent sass that, like, there's so many characters like this on television. I know we just keep talking about how there's all these different things on television, but there's so many, like, knowledgeable sage type characters on television, and none of them are quite as delightful as her right now. That's how I feel anyway.
Yeah, no, she really, I think that character is another great example of like she's more of a main character on the show, but just like someone who, when she's on screen, you're happy to see her always. Yes. And she's in season 1. I know she did some bad things and did some good things, and you're whether you're rooting for her or not is sort of a fluid thing, but it's like you're always just happy to see her. And that I think is one of the great sci-fi things, right? That's like thinking back to like Firefly or whatever. Like when there's characters that you're just happy to see, I think that's one of the sort of hallmarks of good sci-fi.
Yes, exactly. And she really brought it in this episode in terms of, as you said, she did a lot of bad things, but she's also in it for the right reasons still, and not all of the other characters trying to wield that time machine are in it for the right reasons. It was great to see her and Cassie together. I think that she and Amanda Schull have actually some pretty great chemistry. Yeah. I think that they, like, frankly, that they're two of the best performers on the show. So it's going to be cool to see them together, and them sort of turning against Cole this season, because I think that's the direction that it's going. And I'm really excited to see Jones sort of turn on her, her favored agent, and learn more about what led to that. And I don't know, I'm just very excited to see her and Cassie be together.
Well, I'm having one of the things that I don't understand from a motivation standpoint is why Cole at the end was so eager to save Jennifer and to have her not be shot. I don't, that didn't quite track for me, and I could definitely be missing something, but it just didn't, I didn't see anything from those two that would like really like establish a super connection, or I don't understand why they couldn't have just taken the vial from her and taken her hostage. Like
she could drop the vial, man.
I guess, yeah, but I mean, if you shot her, wouldn't she drop the vial as well? Like, I don't know. It just, that whole scene, like how we got to the standoff between Cole and Cassie, I understand that was definitely the endpoint they had to get to, because I agree that they're setting up this season to be like Cole versus Cassie, which I think is cool. It's like a neat little twist on it. But I don't know if I fully tracked why it escalated to that point. Like, why we got there so fast.
So I agree. I'm totally in the dark with you as well. The one thing that I did pick up in the dialogue on the bridge with the agent who showed up, who I guess maybe I'm supposed to recognize, the kind of like short-haired blonde guy, like he's an agent of the 12 Monkeys or the Witness or something. The one thing that I picked up from his dialogue was that Jennifer acted outside of the timeline and did something she had never previously done before, which was to go on that speed dating thing. And let me just say, I've never been a huge fan of the portrayal of Jennifer Goins in the show, but that was great. And so she acted outside of the timeline, and I don't know how or if Cole knows that, and if that's why he's trying to protect her, or what. But that seems to be sort of the impetus, is she's someplace she was never supposed to be, and someplace that she never was in everybody's, as far as the Witness foretold and all that stuff. Like, she made a free agent decision, which was unplanned, and that kind of makes her a new kind of player. I'm not sure why Cole's protecting her, because I don't think he would have that information, but maybe it's just to get us to the next episode so that we can make her a good guy for her.
No, I think you're onto it here, which is Cole figured something out, because in that dialogue that he and Cassie had, he's basically saying, like, Cassie's conclusions are wrong. Like, it can't be. Like, she's not the one responsible. She's being controlled by someone else. It's not you came to the wrong conclusion, basically,
Right.
about what, and so shooting her won't do anything. We need to save her. I would have liked a little bit more in this episode, because that seems like the entire setup for the whole season. Maybe like a little bit more to shade in why Cole knew that and what Cole was thinking. I think probably would have been helpful, because it seems like it's going to be such an important moment that would have been probably a good one to like drive home for the dummies like me. Like,
Right. Well,
why? Yeah.
I think my imagining of the season is that we're going to catch up to that moment over the course of the season, and perhaps the finale of the season will end, or mid finale of the season will be Cassie going back in time. Because right now, we as an audience have lost Cassie for 8 months, right? She was 4 days into her timeline the last time we saw her. She killed somebody for the first time, and now she's out on a bridge, guns ablazing, and she gets a headshot like 5 times in a row. So like something like we've seen her in the same episode, her first kill 8 months ago, and now she knows how to wield a weapon, our time period. So catching back up 8 months later. So I think that we're going to have to go back and learn Cassie's motivations, and in doing so, learn more of Cole's motivations.
Yeah, no, that all makes sense. And yeah, if we're going to sort of backdate it, and this is obviously a show that has no problem with non-linear storytelling.
Right.
so I'm sure we'll get more of that shaded in and learn more about it. The promos look really interesting, where it's like we're going to the 1940s.
Oh, I didn't see them.
Have you not seen the commercials? Oh,
no,
yeah, there's all kinds of like 1940 stuff going on. I'm very excited. What it seems like they've done this season, based on this episode, is pump the brakes just a bit on the pace of the story, right? Like, this was not like this to me didn't feel well. I mean, one of the things I praised about season 1 was the urgency of the whole thing, and I think that they're going to dial down the urgency on the like week to week plotting of the story, and maybe make it feel a little bit less imminent that this whole thing is going to come crashing down. Because with season 1, there was always that kind of sense of dread, like that this is all going to come to a head any moment now. And I didn't have that feeling with this episode. It felt like we're sort of just scratching the surface of the story. And so I think that they are sort of rethinking the scope of the show because it was successful. But what I was impressed about this episode is that it still felt like an urgent episode, even if the sort of big picture story didn't feel as urgent as maybe it did in season 1.
No, yeah, I would totally agree with that. That there was no lull from scene to scene, and there was no lull in character motivation. And that's a big
yes.
That's a big thing that can, like the Walking Dead famously has this problem of a lack of character motivation or a lack of plot.
well, The Walking Dead is a great example of a show that like has some good ideas, but also is like bound by the commercial interests of
Right.
the show. Like, it has to do a certain number of episodes every season, and it has to just keep churning out seasons, and there can be no end date, which means there can't be any goal on the show, because there's no way you could string out a single goal long enough to be interesting at all. And so they just have to like come up with artificial, points for our crew to deal with, artificial problems, artificial roadblocks. But there's no road. It's like roadblocks towards nothing. And The Walking Dead like sort of bounces around in quality based on how compelling those roadblocks are. But if you take one step back, you see that the road is a circle, and you're just going in circles every single season. And that is something that we're a long ways away with 12 Monkeys, but the show has never felt like a circle, despite all of its sort of time as a flat circle implications, True Detective style. It always feels like it's heading forward. And we know some of the points that it's heading towards, like this worldwide apocalypse and all that. Like, they've done a very good job at managing sort of viewer expectations and filling in enough to where we feel like we're heading towards something, and that sort of keeps the momentum going, as opposed to just stagnating in a swamp like The Walking Dead does every season 4 times, And so so far, obviously, we've got a long ways to go before 12 Monkeys has done as many episodes as The Walking Dead, but it's a promising start for the series.
I would like to point out that you and I have been podcasting on the Southgate Media Network Southgate Media Group Network. I apologize. For going close to 3 years now.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow in every single show that we talk about, we find a way to rag on The Walking Dead.
I do. Well, I really go back and forth on it because again, the show itself goes through sort of quality dips and peaks and valleys of quality. But yeah, we always, since we've been podcasting so long, we always hit the valley eventually on all our shows. It's just not very good. Like, I'm sorry, it's just not very good.
No, it's not. I mean, it's captivating and you got zombies and cool, whatever, but it's not enough story.
It's just you got zombies. That's
right.
The deal of the show. There are zombies.
And I guess some people think that Daryl's cool. So, I mean.
At this point now, like, that's the thing, is like the cool characters are now just to the point where the show knows it's all they've got. So they just play it for all it's worth. You know, there's only so many times you can use that card. It would be like if we had like 4 straight Deacon episodes, Deacon would stop being so cool.
That's
it's like the reason Deacon's cool is that he shows up for 4 scenes and he's like holding a guy while Cassie stabs him in the neck with a knife. Like, that's why Deacon's cool. You know, you can't do that every week.
All right. Speaking of Deacon, interesting plot twist. We kind of touched on this earlier, but I'm very interested to watch Cassie as a doctor again, because it feels like maybe midway through last season, yes, the doctor aspect is like a huge important part of her being and why she, is still lived through this whole ordeal. But it's interesting for her to diagnose Deacon and to create a friendship that way. And it's find a natural way that those two could sort of come together and see eye to eye. You don't always, I mean, I don't know, maybe you thought that was cheap, but I thought it's always good when they find ways that characters can actually get along as opposed to them just suddenly deciding that they get along. Well, my least favorite thing in sci-fi is when characters suddenly are on the same side.
Yeah, right. I mean, it was obviously like connective tissue. Like, okay, we need this to happen. Let's come up with a reason for it to happen. But what you pointed out, I think, is very valid, which is that they came up with a reason that perfectly fits with Cassie's character. Mm-hmm. That, she, Dr. House style, diagnosed him by looking at him for 2 seconds. and immediately knew what was wrong. And obviously, like, as soon as she said that, we all knew where that was headed. But it was well done not to, like, betray the characters in service of plot. You always want to, like, make sure that the characters aren't being being pushed aside in order to get where you need to go. And so I enjoyed that. I enjoyed that whole thing. And again, I think those two together are pretty delightful, stabbing people in the neck and all.
Yes, I'm interested in seeing where that goes, and seeing if it will sort of supersede her relationship with Cole at all.
I think it might. I mean, it could, right? We could get a situation of a, dare I say, a love triangle, a sort of smoldering, simmering, very sort of lightly lit love triangle between the 3 of them, where Cole gets a little bit jealous that Deacon and Cassie are more on the same page than he and Cassie are. Just a little.
I would like that. I think I think Deacon's great, and I'd like to see more of him. But you're right; we don't want him to become a Daryl.
Yeah. I mean, we can have a big Deacon story. It's just limit the dosage. We need to keep Deacon, the potent comedy of Deacon on the show.
And that's how I've always felt, actually, about the Jennifer Goins character. I know that you feel differently than I do, but I feel like in a small scope, she's great. But if you give her too much time, I'm just listening to the ramblings of a madwoman, and I don't care for that. That's the one thing that I don't care for as a viewer. But
I don't know. There is. I've always liked that character. I know why, because like I like interesting things. I like that she's something different. I mean, to me, this episode deployed her perfectly. Yeah. Which is you had the very comic scene of her and speed dating, and poor Dale, man.
Poor Dale.
Poor Dale. Just all he wanted to do was talk about a jet ski, And sometimes, in life, we're all Dales. We're all Dales. We all have Dale moments.
But good on him, because he interrupted the timeline.
He did, and he called 911. He really, I mean, Dale really pulled it together for a guy at a speed dating class who opened with a line about a jet ski. He really, he didn't blow up the world. He didn't unleash the virus. He didn't shoot her. He called the police. Like, really, about as good as you could hope for from Dale.
Yeah.
So good on you, Dale. The sort of quiet hero of this episode. But I just like having her in that scene where it's a sort of mix of kind of slapstick comedy, but also with menace. Mm-hmm. is something I really like. I like that sort of vibe from the character. I like that she's like completely unhinged, basically, but also has these moments of lucidity. And I don't know, just like on a show where I've already sort of conceded that I'm not going to understand a lot of what's happening in this episode, it becomes less bothersome when I don't understand her ramblings, because I feel like a lot of the episode I'm not getting anyway. And so it's just sort of this, the show itself becomes kind of like an art project where I'm just enjoying every scene for what it is and not really worried about the implications. And through that lens, Jennifer is very enjoyable.
Yes, that is certainly true.
She's really works perfectly when you're watching the show like that.
Well, I'm very excited to see what looks like her, Ramsey, and Cole teaming up against Cassie, even though, my little shipper heart doesn't want Cassie and Cole to be against each other.
Oh, it'll just bring them closer together in the end.
Oh, I know. But I'm interested to see Jennifer Goins take a more sympathetic route, perhaps, because that's what I got from her this episode, is that they decided they wanted to deploy her in a more sympathetic way as opposed to a more menacing way.
Well, and it could be a sort of love square situation where her and Cole are getting closer, and Cassie and Deacon are getting closer, and that's their sort of tag team match for this season. And but we all know, it's sort of that's layered on top of the tension that we all know that sort of Cole and Cassie are kind of star-crossed lovers, destined to be together. If there's anything I know about TV, but it does seem like she's now sort of indebted to Cole. I mean, who knows if she'll see it that way? Who knows anything about what she's thinking? But it would be interesting if her and Cole were sort of on the run together.
Yes.
And just having her, because I think that you give him to play off of, and those are two characters that are very sort of comedic in nature, and that I could see a lot of very delightful scenes between the two.
Oh, definitely. And take him away from the logical character and make him, be with the crazy character. That'll be a very different dynamic than the dynamic we had last season. Yes,
you'd have the two sort of practical pragmatists in Deacon and Cassie, and the two sort of Looney Tunes with Jennifer and Cole.
Yes. Well, I'm looking forward to the rest of the season. As you said, although I missed it, I'm looking forward to going to multiple timelines, multiple periods in time, and I'm interested. I'm in. I'm on board. I'm watching the whole thing. So.
Me too. I'm absolutely on board. I really like this show.
Yeah. Sometimes it's hard when you come into the second season of something to know whether or not it's going to be worth it to continue on. I'm a pretty frequently a one season watcher where I decide that I can't do it anymore with a show because the concept is too high or whatever. But I think the 12 Monkeys gang, the whole creative team really gets what works about the show, and I'm excited.
I agree, and I am excited as well.
All right. This wraps up our 13th episode of the 12 Monkeys podcast. Before we go, I want to mention a few things. You can download and subscribe to our podcasts on iTunes, Stitcher, and Libsyn. You can also hear all of our podcasts at our website, southgatemediagroup.com. Please subscribe to the show and also rate us. Check out my new podcast, Professional Geek Podcast, a show about how to be a professional and also a geek. Follow this podcast's Twitter handle on Twitter at 12 Monkeys Pod, and Kyle and I at Kyle Loves TV and at Blaire Loves TV. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.